Seth Rollins came out and notes that it's now been 10 years that he's been on the main roster. And they say, thank you, Rollins. Thank you for coming to work every week. And again, treated like a total babyface here.
I can't believe it's been 10 years, honestly. Like, I mean, I know I say that a lot these days, but it's been 10 years since the Shield have debuted, dude.
That's a long time. Yeah. It's
like, does it feel that long to you?
It feels like 10 years. Yeah, it does.
Wow. Okay.
Mustafa Ali appears on the screen. He wants to answer this open challenge. I'm sorry, this is a long Raw, and there's only so much here. Mustafa Ali wants to answer the challenge, but then he gets attacked by Bobby Lashley off camera. I thought this was going to be Dexter Lumis, but it's Lashley, who accepts the challenge, and he blames Brock and Rollins for him losing the title. Ali returns, and this poor dude gets tossed over this production equipment. I imagine he is still being scraped off the floor from this throw.
Yeah. We should probably stop and talk about the two big character changers on the show, that being in Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley. I think the Rollins one would, has, you can maybe argue, been in motion for a while now, like with the crowd chanting his song and everything. Last week he worked as a complete babyface with Theory. Yeah. And this week it was almost cemented, with him cutting a babyface promo, doing an open challenge, which is a very babyface thing to do. And then one of the casualties, of course, in all of this is Mustafa Ali, who was right in the middle of a program with Rollins, had challenged him. And then all of a sudden we just kind of forgotten about it until this moment where he was made even more irrelevant. It's certainly an awkward position for him because he's a babyface and he certainly can't challenge Rollins now. And then the other person is Bobby Lashley, who turned on Sunday. It's almost like as if they kind of swapped roles here, like you had Rollins kind of fresh as a babyface, and then Lashley very abruptly turning into a heel. What do you think is sort of the decision making behind those two moves?
I think they realize that this is an audience that wants to get behind Seth. I think he's very refreshed in the babyface role. I think it's a better. I think that this show needs a top babyface. It's very much lacking in that. And I think this very much coincides with, like, Matt Riddle is not that guy on this show. He will be a featured babyface, but like we went as far as we were going to go with him, as high as he was going to get in the Seth feud. And I think they have brought him all back to the comedy now. I think they realize this is his role. It's better than R-Truth, but he's not going to be higher than that, or not higher than where he is now. So Seth becomes that babyface. The crowd wants it. It's something that I think is a lot more healthier for this show to have a top babyface. I think it helps the title. Lashley, it coincides with a turn with him. I think that it's fine to turn him as well. So I don't mind any of these directions.
The Lashley one is a bit more interesting to me because I would argue that, like, coming off of the U.S. title run he had, I thought he was going to move into, sort of ultimately a Roman Reigns challenge as a babyface, against the heel Roman for his championship, because I felt like he was getting that hot. Seems like they are going a different direction, but you can argue Roman at this point might be a babyface, so maybe that's still very much on the table.
They did show the highlight of the end of Lesnar Lashley, but the way they positioned Lashley on this show and the way he discussed Crown Jewel, like, if you had not seen that show, you would have left this just assuming he won the match. Like, that's how they treated it, was like that this guy won, which is kind of the story. He kicked Brock's ass and then slipped at the end and got pinned. So, That was our setup here for Seth and Bobby Lashley for the U.S. title. But before the bell, Lashley sends him to the floor and is destroying Rollins, then runs into a super kick and is thrown into the steps. But then Lashley stops a pedigree and lays out Rollins with a flatliner, rams him into the post, and the officials are out. Seth is dead, and he gets put through the desk by Bobby Lashley. So he's laying there. The match is not going to happen. And as we go to our final commercial break, out walks Austin Theory with the briefcase as everybody is texting their friends. Dude, it's happening. The cash-in is happening now. Turn on the channel. What?
90% of the cash-ins that have occurred in the past, you might actually, have some truth in what you're saying. But this one, I felt zero, anticipation, this is one of by the end, it really kind of does cement it, but even the tease of it, I think, was, let's put into perspective here. This is a man, using the Money in the Bank briefcase for the United States Championship. Okay.
I was fine with it.
And they've done a great job, rehabbing some of these championships. But still, how does a guy holding this for this entire time justify not going for the very top title?
He was going to go for the NXT title a few weeks ago.
Jesus. I mean, that might have even been, a bit more. No, it wouldn't have been more logical. But still, he's going to have to do some explaining. Okay. Why, does he lack that much confidence? Huh? That he doesn't want to go for Roman? Maybe that's
maybe he thought on the eve of the midterms his talents were needed to run the U.S. and not look at the undisputed universe.
Yeah, sure.
He wants to pick his battles. So he picked one with Seth Rollins. He cashes in, the bell rings, and he nails Seth with a forearm smash, Fisherman Buster. Rollins kicks out of both. A-Town Down gets countered. Seth tries for the pedigree, but Theory reverses and hits his own pedigree for a near fall. Theory then rolls into a powerbomb, and Rollins fights back. The stomp gets caught, and he hits A-Town Down. 1, 2, and Lashley pulls out the referee. And Theory is yelling at Lashley, so Lashley decimates Theory. He runs him into the post twice, applies the hurt lock. Theory is down on the floor. Lashley takes off. The referee awakens, and he starts counting Theory, and the man beats the count into the ring, right into a stomp, and gets pinned in 4:57 by Seth Rollins. I had absolutely no problem with this, but by God, Austin Theory looked like the biggest geek on this show by the end of it.
Okay, in the history of the Money in the Bank,
the worst ones that come to mind are that Corbin one that ended up just being like he failed with Cena, I think it was. That was a really bad one. Those are the ones that come to mind. I'm sure maybe I'm forgetting some. This would be right near the bottom, and certainly,
I think I'd rather be like somebody who lost the briefcase, like a Mr. Kennedy, than to number one, inexplicably cash in for the United States Championship and then fail. This to me was hilarious.
I thought they were going to at least have him win this, and it gets hopefully some sympathy on Rollins, and he chases. But I can't say that I disagreed with this outcome either. I don't want to see Seth bogged down with Austin Theory. I think getting this briefcase off Theory, it's actually an albatross off of him. They were not going to go with this guy. It was not going to click at this point. It might sometime down the road. And I don't think this is giving up on Theory, but I think it is bringing him back to hard reset and let's start fresh, because this just did not pan out. And this was a waste of a Money in the Bank overall. You got a commercial break out of it to hopefully build to the last 10 minutes, which may end up being the second least watched quarter of the whole show instead of the least watched quarter of the show.
I think that was my biggest problem with it. Not the fact that he didn't win, but the fact that you had talked about many times the idea of him losing the briefcase to somebody else, namely somebody like a Kevin Owens that I think would have at least been able to challenge Roman Reigns to a match, or at least built to some actual drama that would have helped elevate Kevin Owens, and not to mention really just the briefcase as a prop in itself.
Do you remember that idea we had before Money in the Bank of just the interesting ways you could go if Sami Zayn remember Sami Zayn was in the match to win the briefcase to protect Roman, and that's in the background of all of this. You could even have it where Sami, he's not even carrying it. It's we're forgetting about the fact he's got this briefcase, and one time the breaking point comes and there he is in his locker room, and we just see a shot of the briefcase, and it's been in the background for months, as though it's been just stowed away because no one's cashing in on the tribal chief, and thus they've had a reason to keep Sami around, but there's a breaking point down the road.
Totally. Yeah.
And you could go with Zayn and Reigns. You could go with Zayn and Owens challenging for the tag titles for a unique thing in Montreal. That was back in July that we were throwing out that idea. that you could, granted, it was not where this Zayn story is now, but again, it was something that was still percolating by that point in July. A lot better than this turned out to be.
Well, yeah, point is, like, you know, the Money in the Bank is a device that you could have used, I think, to much more effective, drama than what they ended up with here, which was ultimately, I don't know, I feel like something that, like, made Austin Theory look worse than before he won the briefcase. So I was disappointed in that reason. Now, like, logically speaking, okay, nobody would have bought Austin Theory beating Roman Reigns for the championship in any scenario, no matter how, you know, tough of a match Roman Reigns, you know, had just been through. So, like,
and would have been a horrible idea.
Of course, yeah. That said, when they initially put the briefcase on Austin Theory, I mean, if under a different, you know, creative control, would Vince have gone with that move, do you think?
I would still say no. I still feel they would not have gone with Austin Theory.
Yeah,
but it's hard.
Right.
It's hard to
right.
say.
But I would at least say that, like, I'd feel pretty safe in at least saying that he probably would have at least challenged Roman for it and not Seth Rollins on the losing end. You know, like, to me, this, like, really tells me Austin Theory was the guy who has lost the most, you know, by this regime change. Under Vince, I have no doubt maybe this scene would have played better. And again, not to even say, like, you know, Paul Levesque was wrong in making this decision, because really, like, I think if given the choice, would he have put Austin Theory as the Money in the Bank winner? Absolutely, probably not. But I still feel like there was something more salvageable from the whole experiment than this.
You know, Vince had to get to that UFC pay-per-view right after Money in the Bank, so maybe he wasn't giving it all of his due attention. You know.
A bunch of people in the chat room are saying Damien Sandow cash-in was terrible against John Cena, who was injured at the time of that failed cash-in. So that ranks up there as well.